Hello. Good evening, my friends. Good evening. And thank you so much for coming to join me today. It is a very somber day all over New York, the country, and probably the world. 23 years ago seems like a lifetime ago sometimes, and just yesterday and other times. And last year, I did a show with Duty Ron and Phil Grimaldi all about our experiences on the day. We talked about it, and YouTube immediately demonetized it, shadow banned it. I'm going to link it below because you should watch it because it was really a beautiful, emotional show about, and Duty Ron and Phil were both first responders on the day that we're not allowed to say on YouTube because YouTube doesn't like it. So if you wouldn't mind just not writing 9/11 in the chat, YouTube hates it for some reason. They think we're promoting some sort of word that begins with T, and it's shocking and it's horrifying, but welcome to censorship, which, as you know, is also alive and well in Massachusetts. And I would just like to say, I really, really miss my skyline. I really miss my skyline. It was such a beautiful day. One of the most beautiful days weather-wise that we have. I mean, it's just crazy to remember it that way. Everyone remembers exactly where they were on that day, and, it's kinda, like, crazy, like, they never really even talk about it in the schools. I have 5 kids, and I remember, like, rushing to the elementary school to grab my kids and pull them out of school. I was in federal court out here on Long Island, which is, like, the tallest building on Long Island. It is like a Target. And I remember hearing it before I went into the courthouse and then going into the courthouse and going up the elevator and being in court and hearing that a second plane hit and then saying to the court officers, like, this is like intentional. You have to let us out of this building. This is a target. And they did eventually let us out of the building. We took the stairs and we all like raced home and dragged our kids out of school. I did anyway. And nobody's cell phones were working and we couldn't reach anybody. And my brother was working across the street from the town. It was a horrific, horrific day. And some days it feels like yesterday. And some days it feels like a lifetime ago, but we will never, ever forget. Prayers up for everyone who lost someone, for their families, for their children who have grown up not knowing their parents. It is tragic, tragic. Still to this day, it makes me want to cry when I just talk about it. So we're going to move on. I didn't even want to do a show today. And then I was like, you know what? We got to do a show today. There's a lot to talk about. I need a distraction. So thank you all for being here to distract me. I appreciate you oh so very much because we have some things to talk about today. And they are as follows. Karen Reed's team has perfected their appeal in the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts just today. Hot off the press, my friends. The appeal was just filed at 4:25 p.m. today. I'm going to show you the docket. Sadly, I am unable to obtain the briefs, but as soon as I can get them, we will read them together. We will go over them together with a fine-tooth comb. This is the Massachusetts Appellate Court case search, and this is the docket for Supreme Judicial Court for Suffolk County, Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. And it says right at the top there, this case contains impounded material. And of course it does, right? Of course it does. Why wouldn't it? Why should the state of Massachusetts believe in public records for all? I may not even be able to get a copy of the brief until I can get it from a Massachusetts lawyer because unlike most other states, you have to be a lawyer in Massachusetts to obtain or find or even like get online certain documents from the court system. It's not open to the public the way it should be. Maybe if you go down to the courthouse, you can get it. But in any event, this was filed in the SJC, which is the highest appellate court in Massachusetts, the Supreme Judicial Court. And there is the case number. If there are any admitted Massachusetts, I have sources. Nobody has sent me the brief yet. They usually do. Send it to me right away. You guys know who you are, my amazing document finders. But I could not get the documents today. This just happened. So literally, this is hot off the press. It was entered today, and the nature of this appeal is a motion to dismiss based on double jeopardy that, as you know, was denied by Judge Cannoni without even a hearing, to call in the jurors, to ask them if they actually did acquit Karen Reed on 2 charges, because, double jeopardy is the thing. Here are the attorneys involved for Karen Reed. We have Marty Weinberg, Michael Pabian, and David Yannetti. For the Commonwealth, Adam Lally, ADA, and Pamela Alford, who looks like she's the chief appellate attorney. And then we have Alan Jackson as an out-of-state attorney. So these are all fresh from today. Case was entered. Docket note. Document number 5 is temporarily impounded pursuant to SJC Rule 115. Then we have a petition for relief pursuant to General Law Section 211, Section 3, with certificate of service, filed for Karen Reed by attorneys Marty Weinberg, Michael Pabian, Alan Jackson, and David Yannetti. Then filing number 2 is called Exhibits A and B to petition number 1, filed by Weinberg, Pabian, Jackson, Yannetti. Then number 3 is the appendix of Karen Reed, filed by these same attorneys. Number 4 is a motion for leave to file transcript of May 24, 2024 sealed sidebar under seal with certificate of service, filed by same attorneys. I went back and looked it up. May 24th of 2024 was day 17 of testimony. That is the day that Brian Higgins testified. There were a couple of sidebars that day, but I think perhaps, and we can play it if you want to, I think perhaps the sidebar that they're talking about is the one at the very end of the day where Higgins starts talking about how he cracked his SIM card and he put it in the dumpsters, and then his attorney had to come up and stand with him, and they did some voir dire, and then the judge let the jury go, and then she had all these frantic sidebars with, even Karen went up to sidebar. So that is sealed. And then number 5 is temporarily impounded. That's the transcript of the May 24th sealed sidebar, which is temporary. And then number 6 is a motion for pro hoc vice admission of Alan Jackson in the Supreme Judicial Court. And I'm not sure if Massachusetts rules require you to be admitted pro hoc vice for every appeal, because wasn't Alan Jackson on the team when they did their other appeal to the SJC regarding Jen McCabe's Google searches and cell phone records? I can't recall off the top of my head. 10-second discussion with lawyer. Play it. We will follow you. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Pabian, he may work at Yannetti's office. I'm not sure. He may work at Marty Weinberg's office. Let's see. Let's see. He's out of Framingham. And I do not know. Oh, he went to NYU. Look at that. If anybody has any better information than I do, you can let me know. But it looks like he's a complex attorney, works on complex litigation, criminal defense attorney, uses cutting edge legal analysis. So I'm not sure. Maybe they worked together in the past, but appellate court is a whole different animal. It involves oral argument. It involves, there's no jury. It's just a panel of judges. I'm not sure if they use a panel of judges here at this SJC or just one judge, but when you orally argue, you have to be prepared for questions, and it's a special skill. It's a special skill. Just because you're a trial lawyer doesn't necessarily make you an amazing appellate lawyer. So there's that. Perhaps that's who he is. He's now part of the team. The dream team is growing. Emma, you are absolutely 100% correct. And that is what we have. We can go back and take a listen, if you'd like, to some of Higgins' testimony. See if we can try and figure out what was said during this sidebar, if you like. We also have some other things to talk about tonight. Matthew Farwell has asked to stay in custody. His hearing for tomorrow is canceled. We're supposed to have a detention hearing tomorrow in federal court. That has been canceled because Farwell has asked to please stay in custody. And there's another motion that we can look at on that as well. Michael Proctor has been taken off the Brian Walshe case, and they've announced that they're not going to call him to testify at the Brian Walshe trial, which I've been saying for a very, very long time. The ripple effects of Michael Proctor were going to be enormous, and we're seeing it. There was also some discussion last night at the Canton board meeting about the status of Kevin Albert and where he stands with regard to the Canton PD. And we also have Sergeant Gallagher announcing his retirement. Isn't it so funny how all of these people are so enmeshed and so involved in all of these cases that we're following right now? It's like there's never a dull moment. Thanks, Amy in Boston, for kisses. Kisses right back. Thanks, Sandy, who says, thanks for always needing some much needed levity when discussing these awful cases. Got to do it, right? Sometimes we just got to do what we just got to do. So, yeah, I'm thinking that too. Farwell might be safer in custody. He might feel safer in custody. Yep, Berkowitz's son got promoted. There is so much craziness going on. But why don't we take like 15 minutes and go back to day 17 of what the what Court TV has named, the killer or cover-up trial. Killer or cover-up murder trial. So ridiculous, isn't it? And see why they want to seal that. And if we can try and piece together, because we're so collaborative here, what we think they were saying at that sidebar, why it matters and why it needs to be sealed. This was towards the end of the day on day 17. I'm going to let it play for, we'll listen to a little bit of the testimony. And then we'll see them run up to sidebar. All right. How much do I miss watching this trial? I kind of miss that. I miss the fan. I miss our special emojis. I miss being outraged. And although I do not want to have to go through this again, I don't want Karen to have to go through this again, or her family to have to go through this again. We need to get to the bottom of what this jury decided. Like it's so beyond my comprehension that a judge in this case wouldn't want to know whether the jury really did acquit on those two charges, and then what's going to happen. The SJC may hear this appeal and then send it back to Cannoni to call the jurors in. So it's kind of like a circle. The circle of life, the circle of ridiculousness. And I miss the fan. They said the fam. I miss the fam. I miss our fam. I miss our group. Hello. All right. Let's go back to Higgy, getting Higgy with it. This was at the very end of day 17, being cross-examined by Alan Jackson.
At 3:10 p.m., you called Brian Albert's brother, Kevin Albert, correct?
I don't know.
And here it is. Kevin Albert. Kevin Albert's conflict of interest. And he's calling Kevin Albert. Maybe that's what this is about.
It's possible.
Okay.
I don't remember every phone call I made that day.
Understood. Do you remember talking to Kevin Albert?
I don't.
So you don't remember what you discussed with him?
No.
Do you remember that it was a 12-minute phone call?
No, I don't remember having any phone call, but I'm sure it's possible that we spoke.
Do you remember Kevin Albert providing you any information about the ongoing investigation into John O'Keefe's death?
No.
Did you ask him about additional information concerning John O'Keefe's death?
No.
Were you providing details back to Brian Albert that you were receiving while at Canton PD?
Absolutely not. No.
Absolutely not. No. So emphatic, right? With certain things. And that's when he's probably lying.
Do you recall that 2 minutes after you cleared the call with Kevin Albert, you then called Brian Albert?
It's possible.
So I think the question was, do you remember? Do you remember that?
Your Honor, there was a lot of phone calls made that day. It was an upsetting day. I spoke to multiple people at multiple times. I don't have a recollection. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Wow, getting a little snippy with Judge Cannoni there. And it was an upsetting day. But it wasn't so upsetting that you reached out to Karen Reed, the woman that you were trying to get jiggy with and wanted to have a future with and really wanted to know where your relationship was going when she texted you that morning, John's dead, right? So, how upsetting was it really to you that you didn't even respond to her? Didn't try and be the white knight and run out and be like, "Oh, what can I do for you? How can I help?" Nope. That face. Where's our sigh emoji?
Yes.
The uncomfortable silence. Can you feel his blood pressure just going up? The judge rocking in her chair. This is just so weird. The court reporter with like an athletic cup in front of her face, talking into it.
Thank you.
Just
Yes.
to close this loop, that appears to be your phone record, correct?
Yes.
And it appears that you made a call at 3:10 for 12 minutes with Kevin Albert, correct?
Yes.
3:10 plus 12 is 3:22, correct?
Yes.
You had cleared the call about 3:22, is that right?
Yes.
And then it shows a 3:24 phone call to Brian Albert then calls you at 3:24, correct?
Yes.
And you two speak for 6 minutes, is that right?
6 minutes, 5 seconds. Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection that you made those calls?
I'm based on the record. Yes.
Was that just a coincidence that you were talking to Brian Albert and Kevin Albert within minutes of one another?
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot going on that day. People were upset. And I don't remember the phone calls. I don't deny making the phone calls. I just don't remember them.
Do you remember providing information that you were learning?
Well, you can't really deny them now that there's receipts, can you? Now that you've been, now that you've been shown the Celebrite extraction from your phone, can't really deny it now, right?
From Kevin Albert to Brian Albert?
Absolutely not.
And then
You can see the sweat forming on his brow. Yeah, the sirens should be coming up soon.
may I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Same record. If you look just below those phone calls to Kevin Albert and Brian Albert, there's 2 additional phone calls that you had with Chief Berkowitz and then Brian Albert again, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Higgins, it looks an awful lot like you're gleaning information from Canton PD. Were you doing that?
Objection.
So I sustain the objection in that form. You can ask one part of that question.
Sure. Were you getting any information from Canton PD?
No, I wasn't.
Did you provide any information to Brian Albert
No, I did not.
based on any conversations or conduct at Canton PD?
No.
May I approach?
Yes.
Lie.
But you were, in fact, on the phone with all of those interested parties throughout the day, you'll agree.
I was
Answer that.
okay.
There's
Yes,
no
Your Honor.
objection. You can answer it.
I would. Yes, they're friends, and I was on the phone with them. Yes.
And sir, you were not on duty that day, correct?
No,
You are not a Canton police officer, correct?
that's correct.
You were not assigned to this investigation in any formal capacity, were you?
I was not.
As a matter of fact, you're a witness in a homicide investigation. That's your only role in this, correct?
That's correct, but they're still my friends.
And
Yes.
yet you're still having conversations with Kevin Albert.
But they're still my friends. So I can still talk to my friends, can I? I mean, I did have like a bed over at Canton PD. I still think he slept there. I don't think he ever went home. I don't think he went home when a blizzard was coming just to get his JMO. Probably he has an office. Doesn't he have an office at Canton PD? Probably has a bottle of JMO in his desk, maybe, perhaps, in my opinion.
At Canton PD while you're at Canton PD, correct?
Not about this.
And you're having conversations with Chief Berkowitz of Canton PD while you're at Canton PD, correct?
I had conversations with them, but not about this.
And
No.
you're consistently through the day calling Brian Albert aren't you?
I had conversations with Brian Albert. John was found on his lawn. Yes, of course I had phone conversations with him.
I want to take you back for a second to a couple of other.
Well, he didn't seem too concerned about John being found on his lawn because, you know, he never went outside. So you're so upset that John was found on Brian Albert's lawn, but Brian Albert wasn't so upset, was he? No or yes?
Entries, including one at 3:57, one at 3:58, and one at 4:07. I'm going to draw your attention to 2885 and 2886. Once you have the pages, I'll give you the times once again.
It's amazing how much you pick up each time you watch this.
2885.
2885 and 2886. We'll start with 2886 and then work backward.
Watch
Okay.
the brow
First
getting sweatier.
Entry is at 3:57 and 54 seconds.
.357 and 54 seconds. I see it.
Brian Higgins booking to Sallyport, correct?
It says Brian Higgins, communication to pedestrian Sallyport, communication to pedestrian Sallyport.
Look at the one just above it. That's 3:58.24. Look at 3:57.54. Or the one, it probably is going to be just below it because it's reversed.
You said 3:57:54, correct?
Correct.
That's what I just read.
Got it. Look at 6 entries below at 3:57.36.
3:57:36. I see it. Access granted, Brian Higgins. Booking to Sallyport, Sallyport to booking.
It just, you know, like maybe like this was like, it's so hard to watch this because we know so much about this case, most of us here, right? And we knew so much about this case before it went to trial. And then like, because this makes total sense to us, right? So now we know that he's going in the Sallyport constantly that day. And he said he went home, he's got all kinds of stories, and now he's getting busted. But is the jury getting it? You know, it's hard to watch it when you know so much and then watch it again like you don't know anything and you're thinking, okay, well, like, and the jury's like, well, okay, well, what does this mean? Because remember, the attorneys only had 1 hour to tie this all together, 9 weeks of testimony.
Then there's one more on page 2885. Look for 4:07:47.
4:07:47.
Correct.
I have it. Access granted, Brian Higgins. Booking to Sallyport, booking to Sallyport.
And there's no record in that document of you exiting, correct? That's just booking to Sallyport.
Yes.
Okay. Stop. This testimony was May 17th. No, May 24th. Does anybody remember when that inverted Sallyport video was turned over? Because I seem to remember it was turned over during the trial, right? And I wonder if it was turned over after his testimony now. It's just something that came to mind. But I think it was turned over before his testimony because I think Buchanan testified before Higgins and it was during Buchanan's testimony, but I can't look right now. So if anybody remembers off the top of their head, you know, I'm just interested to know.
I don't, yeah, there's no record. I don't know if it
That's all-
records you
that's all
going
that-
up.
you
That's
answered my
fine.
question. There's no record of it, correct?
Not that I can see here, no. I'm sorry.
And you're aware that that's about 90 minutes before Karen Reed's SUV was delivered to that Sallyport, correct?
No, I'm not aware of that.
You're aware that her car ended up in that Sallyport where you were at 5:36.
I'm aware her car ended up there, yes.
Are you aware that there was other evidence that was also being held in the Sally Port?
Objection.
Sustained.
Yeah,
Did
like
you
solo
see
cups and Stop and Shop bags right next to the, car.
Any other evidence in the Sally Port related to this case?
No.
Did you see a bag, grocery bag with 6 solo cups there?
Objection.
Did you see anything that seemed out of the ordinary there?
All I would do is use that as a cut through. I did not see anything.
Because I'm lazy. Oh, I would just use it as a cut through. I didn't see anything because, as a trained detective, ATF agent, whatever the hell it is that I do, I'm not observant, really, because I suck at my job. Really? I just used it as a cut through. I wouldn't see anything. Oh, really? Let me hear that again.
All I would do is use that as a cut through. I did not see anything.
This fires me up again, all over again.
Are you aware that at 5, well, let me ask you this. You and Chief Berkowitz were moving in and through, at least in some parts of the day, in and through Canton PD together, correct?
At some points we might have been together. We weren't together all day.
Matter of fact, he was also in the Sally Port around the same time you were, correct?
I don't recall that, no.
But the records would reflect that, right? The records that are in front of you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Sustained? Well, the records would he's got
were
the
in the
records in
Sally
front of
Port-
him. He's not allowed to, then the judge's not going to allow him to testify about what's in the records? Okay.
But the last time you're logged into the Sally Port, it's 4:07. Do you remember seeing Chief Berkowitz at Sally Port at 4:14?
No, and if that says that I'm logged, that could be me cutting
Mr.
through.
Higgins, all I'm asking you, I'm not asking you what you did. I'm asking you where you were.
I don't know where I was at that specific time.
Well, you walked into the Sally Port, we know that,
If I walked in, I was
correct?
cutting through, yes.
Right. Was Chief Berkowitz in the Sally Port at 4:14?
Not that I recall, no.
Was he there at 4:30?
I don't remember ever seeing him in the Sally Port, no.
Was he there at 4:33?
I don't remember ever seeing Chief Berkowitz in the Sally Port.
At 4:50?
Objection.
Sustained. Let's move through this, please.
Finally, was he there at 5:36 and 37 seconds at the same time Karen Reed's vehicle was delivered?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Well, he doesn't remember, but for all of the other ones, he was emphatically no, right? Or did he also not? He's.
Do you remember Chief Berkowitz, or were you with Chief Berkowitz when he made a call to the front desk?
No, I don't remember anything like that, no.
Do you remember Chief Berkowitz calling the front desk at 5:42 and saying, "Shut the barracks"?
Objection.
Shut the doors.
Do you remember any kind of call shutting the barracks, meaning shutting the Sally Port?
Objection.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember anything like that, Your Honor.
Okay, next question.
You didn't leave Canton PD until close to 6 p.m., isn't that right?
I don't know what time I left.
Could it have been 5:50, 6 o'clock?
I don't recall what time I left.
Interesting.
You're aware
Okay.
that
All right,
there's video
MLC.
surveillance
Thanks for the deets on the sitch. Says the inverted video was the end of day, June 6th. So that would be 7 plus 6 is 13 days, almost 2 weeks after his testimony. And I remember that Buchanan said, "Oh yeah, I went there, like last week to get this video." And we all thought that inverted video was something that was done intentionally because it was put up there and it was meant to show, it was meant for us to think that the passenger side of the car was really the driver's side of the car. Right? So who ginned that up in between May 24th? And remember, that was like Memorial Day weekend too, right? Lots of time to gin that up. No, am I going to fall into another rabbit hole? See, that's why I have Alice over my head, because call me Alice.
In the Sallyport garage, correct?
That's correct, yes. Around the building.
Were you in the Sallyport at 5:36 when the car was delivered?
I don't have any recollection of that, no.
It's one thing to say I don't remember. It's another thing to say, no, I was not there.
I don't remember being there, no.
Is it possible that you could have been there when that car was delivered?
I don't believe I was, no.
You don't believe you were? or
I
you
don't
weren't?
believe I was, no.
You're aware that the video surveillance feed from the Sallyport garage at or around 5:36, the precise time when the car was delivered, it's just missing, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Look at him. He's so offended. It's missing. The video is missing when the car came into the Sallyport. And then it miraculously reveals itself a week after his testimony, maybe a couple days later, maybe 10 days after his testimony. And then miraculously, it is brought in during the direct examination of Detective Yuri Buchanan, who is now currently under internal affairs investigation, because you can't make this up.
Did you receive a flurry of phone calls from Brian Albert and Chief Berkowitz indicating that some taillight pieces or a taillight piece had been recovered at 34 Fairview later that evening?
Objection.
Sustained.
Why is that sustained?
Did you receive
Did you get a phone call telling you that there were all of a sudden some taillight pieces found? That's not why. Why is that not? This is why they should have to state the grounds for their objections. Okay. Because mommy is sitting on the bench who can just say to Lally, sustained, and Lally doesn't have to pick why he's objecting. And nobody has any remedy. It's just like a joke. Massachusetts, you need to tighten up your game. You need to tighten up your court rules and your jury instructions. And I don't practice in Massachusetts. So I can freely say that, as opposed to all of the Massachusetts admitted attorneys who are afraid to say that because they have to go in front of these judges. You guys need to tighten up your game.
receive a call at all without telling me what the conversation consisted of around 6:12 p.m. from Brian Albert?
I don't know what day you're referring to.
The 29th.
No, I don't remember any phone calls like that.
Do you remember 3 minutes later getting another call from Chief Berkowitz at 6:16 p.m. that lasted about 5 minutes and 15 seconds?
No.
A lot of long phone calls. Because remember that 22-second phone call? That was just a
Yeah,
butt
bro.
dial.
Yes.
Seems that way, John. Yeah, their verdict slips, all that stuff needs to be tightened
If you
up.
look at the entries for 6:12, 6:16, see if that refreshes your recollection.
I can't threaten to turn off the fan anymore,
Are you
Lori.
referring to the,
6:12 and 6:16.
okay, I see those, yes.
There was a call at 6:12 that Brian Albert made to you for a duration of 1 minute and 7 seconds, correct?
Yes.
Look at the way she's swaying back and forth. This is kind of funny, actually. Watch her facial expressions and then remember that video. I can't remember who did it, of Bev looking at one of the crash daddies on the stand and the look in her eyes. And this is kind of it. This might be where it was pulled from. I can't recall, but I think they were both in frame. But look at again her expressions as she, if you're not looking at the screen, come look at it now. As she moseys in her chair back and forth.
Are you referring to the,
6:12 and 6:16.
okay, I see those, yes.
There was a call at 6:12 that Brian Albert made to you for a duration of 1 minute and 7 seconds, correct?
Yes.
And right after that, there was a call from Chief Berkowitz to you at 6:16 that lasted 5 minutes and 15 seconds, correct?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Elite.
They telling you that taillight pieces had been found at the location.
Objection.
Sustained.
Why is that sustained?
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
All right, here we go. This may be the sidebar. This may be it. This is maybe what is sealed. Okay. He's asking him about whether he talked to Berkowitz and whether Berkowitz told him that taillight pieces have been found at the scene when he called him at 6:15 or whatever it is. 5-minute and 15-second phone call. I'll take that back to that question because this is right when their sidebar happens. So let's dial it back a sec.
At 16, that's 1 minute and 7 seconds, correct?
Yes.
Then right after that, there was a call from Chief Berkowitz to you at 6:16 that lasted 5 minutes and 15 seconds, correct?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
They telling you that taillight pieces had been found at the location.
Objection.
Look how he looks over at Lally
Sorry, may we
for the
approach the
objection.
people?
He looks
Okay.
over at Lally like, I don't want to answer this, dude. I don't want to have to testify that they called me to tell me that they started finding taillight pieces and we were all in the clear and we were going to pin it on the girl. Look at the way he looks to Lally. Ugh, so egregious. It makes me sick.
Taillight pieces had been found at the location.
Objection.
Look, dude, you going to protect me?
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
Okay.
All right. And then they approach. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, those sidebar conversations better get released, Sarah. I'm with you on that. Lindsay, I've been wondering this myself too. Can any kind of punishment come to the Commonwealth from the inverted video? It's crazy. It seems they just got away with that with no punishment. I agree. Could it be an appellate issue? Maybe. I can't wait to read what's in the brief. I think the brief is pretty much limited to the double jeopardy issue. But I'm curious and I can't wait to read it. And then as soon as I get it, I'm going to read it to you. Agree, Debbie. The difference between the Reed case and the Boulder shooting, the Boulder shooter, King Super trial is night and day. FBI and Boulder did such a good job in their investigation. I know. If you guys haven't been watching that with me, it is a tragic case out of Boulder, Colorado. I'm just going to let this play through instead of fast forwarding it because we can see Paul lurching practically over Karen right next to her, how close he was. She could probably smell his breath and knows whether he had garlic for lunch. The district attorney of Boulder County is a guy named Michael Darty, who's amazing.
So, may I inquire?
Yes.
Your testimony is that you don't recall the substance of those conversations at 6:12 and 6:16.
I don't know.
Isn't it true that you were asked about those phone calls at another hearing?
There's Greg.
I might have been. I don't recall.
And did you testify at the other hearing that, in fact, what was discussed was the substance of the taillights being found at the location?
No, that's not what that was in reference to.
Were you being provided information from your friend, Chief Berkowitz, about the progress of the investigation?
No.
Were you providing your friend, Brian Albert, information about the progress of the investigation or what you perceived it to be?
No, I didn't have any information on the investigation.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Sure.
It's back to this Boulder trial. This DA in Boulder, Michael Darty, is everything that Lally should be. He is soft-spoken. He painted a picture with his opening that was like nothing I've ever heard before because we couldn't really see so well because it's on WebEx and there's no cameras in the courtroom other
You were
than
not interviewed about this case in any formal capacity until 5 days later, correct?
That sounds about right.
February 1st, Trooper Proctor?
I'm not exactly sure the date, but it was several days after, yes.
I'm sorry, I said February 1st, maybe it's
I don't-
February 3rd.
I don't know the date, but we were into February.
Where did that interview take place?
Sharon, Mass.
I'm sorry?
Sharon, Mass.
At what location?
Sorry?
What location?
Objection.
I'll see counsel very quickly at sidebar.
Okay, at what location? Where in Sharon was he interviewed? Why did he have to go to Sharon for his interview? Does anybody know? Was it at his attorney's office? Why is that objectionable? And then they go to sidebar again. Back to Michael Daugherty. Everything Lally should be. Lally should train him. He's trying the case himself. It's as if Michael Marcy tried this case. He's trying this mass shooting case in Boulder, Colorado, in which a 21-year-old man walked into the King Soopers supermarket back in March of 2021 and gunned down 10 people. It's horrific. The testimony is chilling. We're heavily invested in this trial now because I lived in Boulder for 7 years while I was in college and law school, and it has a special place in my heart. And also because nobody even knows this case is on trial. Even in Boulder, it's not on the news. It's insane. It turns out that Michael Daugherty, when we did the deep dive into him, he worked at the Manhattan DA's office. So I reached out to Bettero. I said, do you know a guy named Michael Daugherty from the DA's office in Manhattan? And he said, yeah, I know him very well. He's an amazing guy. He's now the DA in Boulder. I said, well, that's really crazy because we're watching this trial and it's such a far cry from the Karen Reed trial, just like most of the trials we've watched lately. And he said, well, what can I say? We train him differently at the Manhattan DA's office. And there you have it. So this sidebar goes on for a little bit. Maybe that's the one.
Yeah. Okay. The interview was not at the police station.
It was not, no.
Thanks, Terry.
By the time you interviewed with Trooper Proctor, you had already had numerous conversations with Brian Albert. Is that safe to say?
Well, the interview was with both Trooper Proctor, Sergeant Buchanan, and of course I've talked to Brian Albert because of what took place.
Higgins, that was a yes or no question.
Yeah, of course I've talked to him, yes.
Okay. And the answer is yes, right? Can we agree?
The answer is yes.
Thank you.
We're trying to figure out why. Hi, Love Lamp says I'm confused. Are we watching new things or old things? I'm not trying to be rude, just confused. We are wondering why the sidebar transcript from this particular day is sealed in the appellate court file, and we're trying to figure out what they may have been talking about. So we went back to see where the sidebars were on this particular day of the trial, May 24th, which was day 17, which is Higgins. And we're watching the sidebars to see if we can figure out why it's sealed and what it could say, because we're curious like that.
By the time you spoke with Trooper Proctor and Trooper Buchanan, you had already had numerous conversations with Chief Berkowitz, correct?
Yes.
You had already had numerous conversations with Kevin Albert.
Yes.
You had already had this meeting with the Alberts and the McCabe's over at 34 Fairview. Is that right?
I went to the house.
And discussed this case, as you earlier described in your testimony.
I discussed what we were trying to figure out what happened.
You discussed this case, Mr. Higgins.
Well, at that point, it wasn't a case.
Okay, I'm not parsing words about what a case is versus a matter versus an issue.
Wait, at that point, it
You
wasn't a
understood my
case? Why
question.
wasn't it a case? Was it just an accident? I mean, Proctor had decided within 6 hours that she was guilty of murder, or 16 hours or whatever it was.
Didn't you?
Yes.
Is there a reason you don't want to answer that question?
I don't have a problem.
Objection, Your Honor.
Is there a reason? Or why don't you go ahead and explain?
Well, I feel he's trying to make it sound like something it wasn't. It was.
I'm not trying to make it sound like anything, sir. I'm asking a question. Had you discussed this case or the issues surrounding this case with those folks?
I did discuss things when I went back to the house. Yes.
And that was before you met with Trooper Proctor and Trooper Buchanan,
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
You had already spent an enormous amount of time at Canton PD. We've just gone through those records. Is that right?
I have been at Canton PD. Yes.
And you had been able to you had access at least to all the officers, correct?
What do you mean by? Can you
Anybody that was coming and going at Canton PD.
access for what purpose?
Just to walk by them, to hear what they were saying, see what they were doing.
Yeah, it's not what I was doing. No.
And that's
I'm not
kind of
accusing you of doing.
what it is. And then it's like he gets into like accusing him. And so for some reason, one of these sidebars during this day is sealed in the appellate record. So if you're curious, go back and watch it, because according to the court record, it's impounded. The transcript of May 24 sealed sidebar. And we were trying to figure out why. For those of you who were confused. And also, some of us like to rewatch the testimony because every time we watch it, we get more angry. And that's just the way it is. Moving on to our next topic, unless anyone has any questions regarding the first topic. Thank you so much, Mama She, for your 20. Please excuse my tardiness. What have I missed? My favorite fan. I'm a cupcake fan. I don't know what time you came in. About 20 minutes ago. Karen Reed's team filed their appeal today in the SJC. And we looked at the filings, and then we tried to look at Higgins' testimony. And you came in, you're fine. You haven't missed too much of anything if you've been here for 20 minutes. Thanks, Mama Shade. Joseph Kane says, thanks for your terrific coverage. Do you object, Mr. Lally? Most dishonorable Beverly. Yeah. Oh, Yuri's math teacher is so amazing, gifting 10 memberships. And congratulations to everyone who got them. And you're so generous to me. Thank you so very much. You know I love you. With all of my heart. Dewey, thanks for the 5. They didn't go to the funeral. Higgins didn't go to the funeral because they know cops look for perps at funerals. That's a great point, Dewey. Thank you, Mama She. Seems to me their cut-throughs are like butt dials. Yeah, an awful lot of them, right? Awful lot of cut-throughs. Thanks for the 10. Catherine says, watching this back, how sus is Higgins, right? But again, do you think that the jury got it? I just don't know. If someone made this up as a movie plot, we'd say it's so over the top. Yeah, we'd stop watching and be like, this is so outlandish. How could this even possibly be? It's just ridiculous. Absolutely, absolutely ridiculous, right? Well, as you know, in the Birchmore case, Matthew Farwell, who's been arrested and charged with killing a witness, is sitting in federal detention somewhere over there in Boston. And he was supposed to have a hearing today for his detention. But he has asked to stay in custody. Why? I don't know. Let's take a look. Here's the motion filed by his attorneys. And this was just filed on the 7th. So a little bit like last week. This is defendant's motion for voluntary order of detention without prejudice. It's by Matthew Farwell. Through counsel, asks that this court enter a voluntary order of detention without prejudice and cancel the detention hearing scheduled for September 12th, 2024. As grounds for this request, the defense states that Mr. Farwell had his initial appearance before this court on August 28th of 2024. The government moved for Mr. Farwell's pretrial detention at that time. A detention hearing was scheduled for September 10th and then rescheduled to September 12th. After an opportunity to consult with his counsel, Mr. Farwell now asks the court to enter a voluntary order of detention without prejudice, saving his right to request a detention hearing at a later date when his counsel has had additional time to review materials relating to this case and prepare for such a hearing. Mr. Farwell further asks that this court cancel the detention hearing scheduled for September 12th. And that is exactly what they did. So if any of you were planning on going to the hearing for Farwell tomorrow, don't go because it's been canceled. Some people are surmising that he thinks that he may be safer in custody than out of custody. What say you? Interesting. The next thing that happened today in Farwell, actually this was on the 9th, is an order of protection, which is basically sort of a sealing of all the records. But I'll read a little bit of it to you so you can get a better grip on what I'm exactly talking about. Doesn't really want to cooperate with me, but here it is. It's an assented to motion for a protective order, which means both sides agreed to this. And they're asking the court to request that the court enter a protective order restricting the use and dissemination of information in this case as set forth below. Defendant Matthew Farwell was charged by indictment on August 27th of 2024. Oh, this won't go away. Go away. Go away. Okay. With one count of killing a person with intent to prevent the communication to law enforcement information relating to the commission or possible commission of a federal crime in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1512. The government intends to produce to the defense team certain discovery in this case, referred to as the protected information. Yeah, so they're trying to continue with the cover up with this motion. The government anticipates that the protected information will include crime scene photographs depicting the body of Sandra Birchmore, autopsy photos of Sandra Birchmore, phone and laptop extractions of Sandra Birchmore from which it would be impractical or impossible to redact all identifying information contained therein, medical records of Sandra Birchmore, and law enforcement reports identifying witnesses by name. This is pretty much standard in federal court, so I'm not going to say that they're trying to cover up the cover up, but they are putting very strict parameters around what Matthew Farwell is allowed to keep in his possession to review while he's incarcerated. And as you know, defendants are allowed time to prepare for their case while they're incarcerated. For example, Rex Heuermann, who is the accused Long Island serial killer here on Long Island, is allowed something like 4 hours a day to come out of his cell and into the law library or wherever his case file is to review his case file. So this is pretty standard. But here it's delineating all the things that they intend to give to the defense. And they're saying this stuff is all protected. And what we want is that the defendant be permitted to review such materials only in the presence of counsel or members of the defense team, that the government will take pains to provide redacted copies of materials in subcategory E, which is the police reports identifying witnesses by name, and distinct excerpts from subcategory C for the defendant's unrestricted access to enable him to review those materials more expeditiously on his own. Every defendant has the right to participate in their own defense, and that's what this is about. But they want to make sure that none of this stuff gets leaked and none of this stuff gets out and gets to the media or winds up on Twitter or any place else. And so both sides have agreed to this. And this was so ordered by the court. And it's about 8 pages long. We don't need to read the whole thing. But the government wants the defense counsel of record to agree to advise all members of the defense team of their obligations under the protective order and ensure their agreement to follow the protective order, etc., and so forth. And everything should be protected and such. Why do you think? Why do you think he wants to stay in jail? Do they really need more time to have a detention hearing? I don't know. I'm curious. They don't want the parties to disclose the identity of any witnesses. Any witness other than Sandra Birchmore, who has been publicly named in any public court filing. Well, Sandra Birchmore is no longer a witness because Sandra Birchmore is no longer because Matthew Farwell killed her. Allegedly, innocent until proven guilty and all. So that was filed by Joshua Levy, our favorite acting U.S. attorney, on September 9th in the Farwell matter. Thank you, Jamie Heather, one of our attorneys from, I think, Massachusetts. There was definitely an issue about Higgins' medical records. It was reported on 5/23/24 in the Herald. It may have been discussed at sidebar, and HIPAA would require sealing of it. That's interesting. Yeah, that could be, right? And don't you remember that we saw something in the court file that maybe his medical records were entered into the court file at one point? I do remember that. And we were trying to figure out, why are his medical records in the court file at all? That's a great point. Excellent point. Kimmy, do you think he's spilling the beans? I don't know. I mean, maybe. Maybe. If he asked some people to cover for him and they agreed, and some of those people may be involved in some of the other cases like Brian Walshe and Karen Reed, maybe they're using him for something. Maybe they offered him some sort of a deal. I don't know. Debbie, welcome. Thanks for becoming a member. Bianca, thanks for being a member for 3 months. I missed you. Can't watch without my peeps. Oh, thanks. Same. Same. So I was curious about that. Next up is that Michael Proctor has been taken off the Brian Walshe case. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Brian Walshe case, let me give you a little synopsis of that. Anna Walshe is a mother of 3 from Cohasset who had been missing, or is still missing, actually. It's a no-body murder case since the beginning of the year, before prosecutors charged Brian Walshe with her murder in mid-January. And when they say beginning of the year, this was back in 2023. So what is so interesting about this to me? Sandra Birchmore is killed February 1st, 2021. John O'Keefe was killed January 29th, 2022. Anna Walshe goes missing New Year's Day, January 1st of 2023. These murders, all in Norfolk County, all within almost exactly 1 year of each other, and all involving many of the same players. It's just interesting, right? Brian Walshe her husband was charged with her murder in mid-January of 2023. Brian Walshe's murder case is hinging on a lengthy list of Google searches and other things that were found in his devices. Google searches that included things like how to discard and dismember a dead body, what's the best state to divorce for a man, and that was searched before she disappeared. And Lynn Beland of the Norfolk County DA's office, you may remember that name from those letters that we read that were released, where Michael Marcy was frantically writing to the U.S. attorney asking what they were investigating in 2023, which is interesting because that was right after Anna Walshe went missing. Lynn Beland said, rather than divorce, we believe that Brian Walshe dismembered Anna Walshe and discarded her body. Law enforcement attempted to track the trash bags that Brian Walshe allegedly left in dumpsters, but they had already been picked up for shredding, according to prosecutors. And this, again, is the Norfolk County DA's office. And by the time police arrived at the location where they were being disposed of, the bags had been destroyed. Police said, or the DA's office said, investigators recovered 10 trash bags that contained a Tyvek suit, towels, rags, slippers, tape, gloves, cleaning agents, a carpet, hunting boots, a COVID-19 vaccine card in the name of Anna Walshe, a hacksaw, and a hatchet. Some of those items, Beland said, featured stains similar to blood. A state crime lab found blood that matched Brian and Anna Walshe on the slippers and the Tyvek suit, among other things, Beland said. Among the internet searches prosecutors said Brian Walshe made in the days after Anna Walshe was last seen were how to stop a body from decomposing, 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to, and how long a person needs to be missing to inherit, according to prosecutors. He also searched on January 2nd, hacksaw, best tool to dismember at 1:10 p.m. Can you be charged with murder without a body? And at 1:14 p.m., can you identify a body without broken teeth? Beland said. So as you can see, in the Brian Walshe case, the investigation of which was led by none other than Michael Proctor, cellular forensics and computer forensics and extraction reports of Celebrite are going to become very important in that case. And I wonder if Guarino did the extractions in that case. But this was yesterday. Yesterday, Norfolk County DA's office has announced that Michael Proctor is not going to be called to testify. Let's watch a little of Boston 10's coverage because our friend Mark Betterow is on this piece. Let's listen.
The fallout of the Karen Reed murder trial is impacting another high-profile case here in Massachusetts. State Police Trooper Michael Proctor will not take the stand in another murder trial.
This time, it is for the murder trial of Brian Walshe. The Cohasset man is accused of killing his wife, Anna, last year and then hiding her dismembered body. NBC 10's Eli Rosenberg joins us live outside the Norfolk County Courthouse. Eli, what is Proctor's connection to this case?
Well, it's very interesting. And if you follow the Karen Reed case, you know the name Michael Proctor. And despite the fact he is leading investigator in the Brian Walshe investigation as well, the DA's office saying more likely than not, he will not be climbing these steps to testify in that separate murder trial.
Oh, those steps, those Norfolk County Superior Court steps in Dedham. We watched so much during the Karen Reed trial. They're back.
He was front and center at one of the biggest trials in recent memory.
A sarcastic remark I made to Trooper DeChico.
Michael Proctor on the stand and in the hot seat over his conduct during the Karen Reed investigation and trial. Now word he won't be involved in another high-profile murder trial, which he was also lead investigator.
He was a complete disaster in the Karen Reed case that would follow him around at any other trial.
According to this recent court filing, the district attorney not planning on calling Proctor in the Brian Walshe trial.
Brian, did you kill your wife?
Walshe is charged with killing his wife and dismembering her body in early January 2023.
The baggage he comes with, it costs more to call him than not to. Now, the defendant will likely call him. That's their right. But it won't come off as badly for the government.
Proctor was the subject of controversy when, during the Reed trial, texts he sent to colleagues and friends were made public. And soon after the trial, state police suspended him. Legal experts say Proctor would face the same line of questioning in Walshe's trial.
The Walshe case is very different from Reed. You know, it's always a little more difficult to prove murder without a body.
All this comes with Reed's second trial now set for the end of January. The DA's office declining to comment when asked on Tuesday if Proctor will testify during Reed's second trial.
I think this is a serious problem at a second retrial. Any case that does rely on his testimony substantially is in serious peril.
All right, and you see the courthouse right here in Dedham. Word from the DA's office, he more likely than not will not be testifying here. Walsh's trial is set to take place here. It's the same courthouse, of course, as Reed's trial. No court date, though, has been set for the Walshe trial. Meanwhile, according to Mass State Police, Proctor remains on unpaid leave as the investigation into his conduct continues. Live in Dedham, Eli Rosenberg, NBC 10 Boston.
Eli, thank you. And be sure to stay with us on air and online for continuing coverage of the Karen Reed case. You can also catch up on what happened in her first trial. Just scan the QR code you see right there on your screen for a link to our website. You can also download our
There you
free
go.
NBC
Mark Bettero's appearance for last night. Mark, there is, that is completely not true with my channel. Respectfully, I highlight all comments that I find interesting, not just ones from members. That is not true, or super chat, but we have almost 3,000 people in the chat, and the chat goes so fast. And here's the thing is that super chats gets highlighted and starred and put into a different column. So I'm trying to find someone's comment who said that it was important. And so I'm scrolling back now to interrupt the stream to do that. Thank you, me, myself, AJ, because I'm reading to you. I'm not watching the chat when I'm reading off the screen. So it's hard, you guys. You got to cut me a little bit of a break. AJ asked Higgins if even Berkowitz was intimidated by Albert. Objection sustained. Sidebar. Okay. AJ made an offer of proof about what Higgins said about Albert's intimidation. Well, that's good information. Thank you for that. Maybe that's what they talked about at sidebar, that everyone's afraid of Brian Albert. Even Berkowitz. There was some talk about some retirement party that he had and some pictures floating around, and like somebody gave a speech, and I can't remember, was it Higgins who gave the speech or Brian Albert who gave the speech that said something about Berkowitz, like, you know, if you ever needed to hide a body, you know, Berkowitz would be your guy, right? Or something like that, right? Interesting. Thank you for that. Definitely no offense to you. I just couldn't find it. So thank you, Gamer Ducko. I never shame you publicly. That's funny. I laugh at your comments all the time. You keep me laughing. Okay, so Proctor is off the Brian Walshe case. He was a case investigator, and now all of a sudden he's not. Remember, he's been reduced to something like a customer service representative, just like he was during the Karen Reed trial. Next up, Kevin Albert. Kevin Albert, apparently, last night there was a Canton town board meeting, apparently. And I'm going to play this little clip of it for you. And our friend Olivia Lambo on Twitter posted this. She lets me play her stuff, so I'm going to play it for you. This is what happened last night at the Canton board meeting, courtesy of the Young Jerks. So take a listen if you haven't seen this. Talking about Kevin Albert, who was also under investigation, but he got like a paid summer vacation, basically.
The next statement is a statement on Detective Kevin Albert. So the select board would like to inform the public that a resolution has been reached in the Canton Police personnel matter. The Canton Police Department hired an independent investigator who conducted a thorough investigation of the allegations of misconduct by Detective Albert. Following the investigation, the select board reviewed the report and had an opportunity to question the investigator and Detective Albert about the scope.
For those of you who don't know, Kevin Albert's brother, Chris Albert, the guy who owns the pizzeria, is on the Canton Select Board, but he sat this vote out.
And sufficiency of the investigation, as well as the substance of the allegations. The select board voted that the discipline be imposed by the chief of police, which Detective Albert has accepted. Select board member Chris Albert recused himself from the hearing.
Oh, he recused himself. How nice. You know who
The
didn't
next
recuse herself?
statement is a
Judge Canoni. Judge Canoni didn't recuse herself, did she? Nope. All right, I'm going to read to you Olivia's tweet regarding this matter because she always seems to have all the tea. She says Kevin Albert was placed on paid administrative leave on June 13th while an investigation was being conducted. Result: an apparent independent investigator was utilized. The select board voted that the discipline be imposed by Chief of Police Helena Rafferty, which Detective Albert has accepted. Select board member Chris Albert, Kevin Albert's brother, and they are both also Brian Albert's brother, owner of 34 Fairview, recused himself from the hearing. Kevin Albert was placed on paid administrative leave on June 13th because of his actions on a case he investigated with Trooper Michael Proctor 2 years ago. This came to light during the Karen Reed trial, thanks to evidence unearthed by the feds during their ongoing investigation. You guys remember this? Remember? Proctor was shown some text messages between himself and Kevin Albert. On June 12th, Michael Proctor testified about his relationship with Kevin Albert, with whom he went out drinking about 5 months into the Reed investigation on July 19th of 2022. After that night out, Kevin Albert left his badge in Proctor's cruiser. Quote, "Found your badge in my cruiser this morning," end quote, Proctor said in a text message that following morning. Kevin Albert told him to leave it in his mailbox and then said, quote, "Did I take my gun?" and included a wincing face emoji. Took nearly a month for officials in Canton to disclose to the public that Detective Kevin Albert was on paid administrative leave. Does not sound like the scope and findings of the investigation will be made public at this time. It is also unclear at this time what, if any, punishment will be assigned to Albert by Chief Rafferty. And then some people posted that they actually saw Kevin Albert on patrol today somewhere as such in the area. So it seems that he's back on the job. And for those of you who are on the cesspool of Twitter, you may follow Olivia at Olivia Lambo. And she seems to have some very good information. She's a super sleuth. So there is that. Also, Christina Rex, whom you may recall, because she is the reporter who interviewed Paul O'Keefe, tweeted in the same vein. One momento. Somebody sent that to me as well. She says, oh, here's the town of Canton's statement regarding the result of an investigation into Detective Kevin Albert. It's unclear what the disciplinary action will be, but I'm asking. Let me see if I can pull up that statement for you, because we like to have receipts, you know? We don't like to come in here and just make stuff up. Receipts are so important. Resolution reached in Canton Police personnel matter. The Canton Police Department hired an independent investigator who conducted a thorough investigation of the allegations of misconduct by Detective Albert. Following the investigation, the Select Board reviewed the report and had an opportunity to question the investigator and Detective Albert about the scope and sufficiency of the investigation, as well as the substance of the allegations. The Select Board voted that discipline be imposed by the Chief of Police, which Detective Albert has accepted. So he's accepted their punishment. Select Board member Chris Albert recused himself from the hearing. So that was the official statement. And then later on in the day, Christina Rex tweeted, update, I can confirm that Kevin Albert is back on the job. Canton Chief says, quote, we are committed to making the independent investigation records available as soon as the other investigations are completed, meaning other IA investigations at MSP. Why does that matter? Because Kevin Albert is with Canton PD. The other guys that are under internal investigations are with MSP, including Tully, Buchanan. Huh. Interesting, right? Interesting. And the other interesting thing that happened is that Lieutenant Gallagher, remember the guy with the leaf blower on scene? He was on scene with the leaf blower. He's apparently put in his official request for retirement, according to Olivia as well. So let's take
So Canton Police Department was
who Lieutenant Gallagher is. We have a little clip for you that Olivia posted. So please go follow her on the Twitter.
So Canton Police Department was, in fact, at your authority, given permission to manipulate that light in terms of pulling it out of the SUV, correct?
Objection.
They pulled out that light.
Sustained.
Canton Police Department was allowed to facilitate the removal of that light.
Yes.
And during the course of the removal of that light, that taillight was broken, correct?
That's correct.
And shattered.
Yes.
Parts of it that were falling under the ground.
I don't think there was anything falling on the ground at that point.
No, you were collecting it in a bag so that you could go sprinkle it at the scene, maybe. I don't know. Just saying, in my opinion.
So now we do have evidence that that taillight, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, was broken or broken more once it was inside the Sallyport in Canton PD's custody.
You're gonna have to rephrase that. I don't understand the broken more part.
During the removal process, that light was broken even more.
That's interesting. He says, I don't know what you mean by the broken more part, as if it wasn't broken at all to begin with. Well, I thought it was cracked. What do you mean you don't understand broken more? You mean it wasn't broken at all? That's really interesting.
No.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Christina Rex either, do we? I'm just saying. Yeah, it was a disgrace, right?
May I approach you?
Yes.
Yep, he was promoted.
Just take a look at that photograph and tell me if you
That was him.
I don't
That
recognize
was
the photograph. It's the
Gallagher.
first time I've seen it.
Do you recognize what's depicted?
So he put in his request for retirement. And there was some information too that Chief Berkowitz's son was promoted. Everyone got a promotion, it seems, after all of these shoddy investigations. How do you get a promotion when, he's He thought he was a genius to use the leaf blower at a crime scene, and he was later promoted, proving idiots surround themselves with other idiots. And he told that Sergeant Good, like, you got a leaf blower? Like, can you shoot home, shoot back? I'll get a leaf blower. Maybe we could see if we can, find some evidence here. Maybe the evidence will reveal itself. Crazy, right? So that is everything I have for you tonight on all of the cases that we're following right out of Norfolk County. It's amazing how many things we can talk about in the same exact county in Massachusetts. There's so much. Leaf blower Gallagher. Craziness going on. So they do retire so that they can keep their pensions. That is clear. And so many of them did, right? During the pendency or after John O'Keefe was murdered. So many of them were allowed to retire. And I may have something here that we may be able to do first thing tomorrow. My source says documents are not scanned into the SJC computer yet. So we got that going for us. We're not behind at all. As soon as they're available, I'll have them for you, and we will go through them with a fine-tooth comb and read them together, and I will explain them to you, just like I always love to do. In the meantime, thank you, everyone, to my moderators for keeping the chat classy tonight. Members, show everyone our special emojis that we had for the Karen Reed trial. We have a solo cup. We have a puffy jacket. We have a what if any. We have we are outraged is a favorite. We have smooth as butter for Alan Jackson. And never forget, my friends, never forget. Today is the day that we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube, and it's a shame. But we will never forget. And I know you will never forget. Thank you, moderators, for keeping the chat classy tonight. I know this is not an easy topic to always cover. And to my members, love you so much. Replay viewers, hit the like button on your way out, and maybe go over and watch Aiden Carney's channel because he's got some information. I think he had an extended interview with that juror who spoke out to him the other day. I think he was going on tonight instead of last night, so go check it out. As I always say, my friends, be cool, be kind, be classy. It's so not hard. It's really so not hard. Make sure you hit the bell so you'll know when I'm going live tomorrow. We're going to do some King Supers and some other things that I have in mind. So just don't know what time yet because of my schedule, but keep an eye out. I'll see you then. Peace, everyone. Good night.